All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to have you here with us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Want to thank everybody who's joined us for today's webinar. My name is Earl Lang. I'm the Senior Strategist and Marketing Manager for our education vertical. I'm going to be moderating today's event. Couple quick housekeeping items before we get started. Just wanted to give you a heads up that phone lines have been muted. That's primarily to just eliminate background noise more than anything. We don't want to let that discourage participation though, so we do encourage questions. If you have those, please submit them via the Q&A function. I'll be monitoring chat so we can tee those up towards the end of the webinar. If you have any other issues, you can also use the chat function. If you're having issues with sound or anything, I can also help you through that as well. We'll be monitoring throughout. And if for whatever reason we don't get to your questions today, we will follow up with you afterwards directly, so don't worry too much about that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and shift to introducing our speakers today. First, we've got Damian Chabunya. Damian here at the Dude drives our industry and product marketing for all major markets, including the public and private sector. He's got 15 years of experience marketing enterprise software solutions in startup, growth stage, and more mature companies. He's passionate about storytelling, innovation, and pragmatic solutions to complex problems. Damian, glad to have you today.
Thanks, Earl.
And we've also got Chris Fearer. Chris is our Director of Data and Analytics at the Dude. And his role, he leads the company's data and analytics offerings for the Dude Solutions platform. With more than a decade of experience in product management, development, and enterprise data for the healthcare industry, Chris is focused on delivering solutions to solve enterprise data, analytics, interoperability, and maintenance operations challenges. Gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Damian?
Thanks, Earl. All right, so I'm going to kick things off and start by talking a little bit about where we've been as an organization over the last 15 to 20 years, where we are today, and where we're headed based on where we believe the market's going. And it's actually pretty timely because the Dude turns 20 later this year, and it's actually pretty special and remarkable to consider what we've been able to accomplish over the last 20 years working very closely with our education clients. We're currently the #1 enterprise asset management provider to the education industry, ahead of some well-established, well-known enterprise software companies. We currently serve clients representing over 60% of the U.S. public K-12 student population, so a lot of students that we touch today, and we help shape a lot of the safe and productive learning environments across America today. We currently have the largest operations data warehouse in the industry and the most extensive ecosystem of people that are submitting requests, interacting with the system, using the system in different ways. And that really allows us to do a number of different things, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail. And then we truly have a solution suite, so we don't just offer one particular product or solution, but we've been very thoughtful about starting with operations and asset management, adding additional modules like capital planning, energy management, event management, and really creating a suite of solutions designed specifically for educational institutions, and really connecting the dots and creating a bigger vision and a bigger picture for our clients. It's interesting, just briefly looking at our history, we were one of the pioneers in this space. So we were one of the first companies to move maintenance and operations into the cloud back in 2000, which really helped our clients get transparency and visibility into their operations that they didn't have before, couldn't have before. And there were some tremendous efficiency gains to be had in that first SaaS-driven era of maintenance and operations. And what's interesting is everything we've done to date really sets the stage for what we believe is the new era of maintenance and operations. And it's based on two things. It's technology-enabled services, and it's data-driven insights. And we feel that we're uniquely positioned to really pioneer this next phase in the journey and to help set you up to succeed for the next 15 to 20 years. And we believe everything we're going to talk about today is what we feel is ultimately going to shape the safe and productive learning environments of tomorrow. So if you're listening and you're already a Duke Solutions client, we thank you and we look forward to the next 15 to 20 years. If you're not yet a client, you can know that many others have gone before you, and we'd love to have you be part of the community and part of Duke Nation. So just real quick, some of the challenges that we're hearing about from you, our clients. We've spent a long time interviewing clients, surveying clients, learning about some of the challenges that you deal with on a daily basis. Many of these are going to be very familiar to you. This is just a one-slide view where we kind of roll up some of the common themes that we hear about. Obviously, the aging infrastructure. There's an infrastructure report card that was released recently. There's a lot of opportunity to improve infrastructure, to devote more funds, more investment into those improvements. We have the skilled trade labor shortage. There's a number of studies and statistics out there about folks retiring, and that starts conversations about succession plans. But there's also competition from the private sector, so it can be hard for public sector institutions to fill some of those open roles. And it's something we hear about on a regular basis. Escalating costs across the board, and budgets are shrinking. There's the whole technology ecosystem that has to be managed. There's a hodgepodge of legacy on-premises systems. There's still quite a bit of manual, paper-based processes. There's some cloud, but it's still early in the SaaS adoption in the public sector in general. So there's a lot to think about and manage there, and a lot of it's burdensome to IT and inefficient from a cost perspective. And then you've got kind of the rising expectations from the academic community, from citizens, from the public in general. They're interacting with some of the breakthrough B2C technology platforms and apps, and they're expecting a certain user experience. And a lot of that shaping how technology is evolving in the public sector. But we recognize that our school district leaders that we work with want to be more effective, more empowered stewards of their community, of their school district. You're after better business outcomes, and you're up against some challenges. And so a lot of what we think about, a lot of what we focus on is what can we bring to the table to kind of shift that equation, help you reframe costs, raise the bar, and really empower you to do what you want to do and be a more effective steward of your community. Work smarter, make better decisions, more informed decisions, do more with less, and really make the most of the budget and the capital that you have. And so a number of different dimensions to think about. We have industry-specific solutions that we'll touch on. We'll talk about some of the technology-enabled services that can really help you realize efficiencies that haven't been possible up till now, and also help you gain some insights into what you should be doing next and what you should be prioritizing from an asset management perspective and from a capital planning perspective. So all of that is high impact and high value and appreciated by our clients. Predictive operations is something that's coming, right? A lot of our clients just want to get on a path from corrective or reactive to more proactive and preventive maintenance, and ultimately set themselves up to take advantage of some of the predictive analytics technologies that are evolving and really coming into their own. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about enterprise data view, so our ability to surface data to you in a meaningful way across not only our products and our ecosystem, but also third-party technologies and other sources that are important to you, be able to surface that to you in a single dashboard in meaningful ways so you can quickly see what's happening in your district. And then I've touched a little bit about our history and some of our expertise, our footprint. We really are in a position to partner with you in this next evolution of maintenance and operations. So we've built a tremendous foundation over the years, really in terms of kind of three dimensions. There's software, best-in-class cloud-based software, there's data, and there's people that interact with the system. You can see a lot of the numbers here, a lot of clients, not only a lot of clients, but a lot of happy clients, a lot of buildings, a lot of assets that we manage, and a lot of students that we touch. But the one I want to just hone in on for a moment is the number of work orders that we've been able to track historically in our system. And we all know it's not just about more data or creating more data. There's enough of that already. It's more about mining this data for insight and really going from data to information and using data to inform your decision making. So we're able, because we're sitting on all this work order history, we're able to do some pretty interesting things. Like, for example, one of the things we find is that most of our clients have incomplete work order data, so it's not tied to assets. We can look at our 20 years of work order history. We can look at your work orders, and we can help you map them to certain asset categories based on the patterns that we're seeing in our data, and that can basically help you improve the data you have and get you on a better foundation so that you can take advantage of some analytics on top of that. Or we can maybe even tell you how long a particular work order might take to resolve, just based on similar work orders that we're seeing in our system. So there's a lot of insight that we can surface to you based on this data. And then we've built industry-specific, education-specific solutions on top of this foundation that help solve the most pressing challenges that we've been hearing about, that you've been telling us about. So, for example, work and asset management. How do I start to efficiently manage my work requests, tie them to assets and equipment, so that I can move from reactive to preventive maintenance? I want to share just one data point on reactive to preventive maintenance, just to bring this home a little bit. So based on our conversations with clients, some of the research that we've been doing, we're finding that a problem that costs $1 to prevent could cost $7 to fix. But what's worse is it could cost $70 to rebuild after a failure. So when you consider some of your largest assets like roofs or HVAC systems, going preventive, so having preventive maintenance schedules, getting ahead of some of the issues, can add up to tremendous cost savings. And we've really seen that in a lot of our clients, frankly, clients of all sizes. Event management. How do I get a handle on after-hours facility usage so I can recover some of that cost? Maybe even open up a new revenue channel through events. Wouldn't that be exciting? Energy management. How do I get a handle on energy consumption to identify waste? Maybe I've got hazardous or inefficient assets that I need to identify, maybe even replace. And how do I create a culture of conservation so that everybody in my community is a better steward of energy? And the savings for a large school district, just based on our experience so far, could easily be in the tens of millions of dollars, which is a tremendous opportunity to reinvest that money in some other initiatives, maybe some of the other solutions that you see here. And lastly, how do I use all this data and insight to help inform my capital investment plan so that I can help prevent unexpected and unfunded capital requests? Nobody likes those calls, right? There's a leaky roof and all of a sudden I've got to spend 6 figures to fix it. But it's not just about having these 4 solutions. It's really about bringing all this together and correlating data across products or across solutions to give you actionable insights. So for example, if you see an energy spike in your gymnasium, you can start to correlate that to facility usage, or maybe you've got equipment that's running inefficiently that you have to replace, or maybe someone's just leaving the lights on. So maybe it's more about a culture of conservation and educating folks about being better stewards. But you can start to get some of those answers, which is pretty unique. So this, for us, is really the culmination of the last 20 years. We've been listening to our clients for a long time, and this is how we're putting all this together to help you make even better decisions. Chris, anything you want to add on this slide?
Sure. Thanks, Damien. And thanks, everyone, for your time today. We definitely appreciate it. Just adding on to what Damien was stating, we looked at the individual products that we've put into the market and that we've watched our clients use over the last several years. And we realized there was a gap on how we were sharing that data between the products and helping bubble up the different opportunities for decisions to be made based on pulling that data together. And that's a lot of what Damien touched on. And we realized we weren't doing a great job, and so we needed to spend some time bringing it together. And part of what we realized in that process is that there was a very passionate group of fellow dudes inside the organization that were really working hard to make this story come to life. And so really over the last 12 plus months, we've been intentional about how we could partner together internally and partner with specific groups externally to help bring together this data story to drive forward with where we thought the market was going and where we're seeing the market going and where we could position the Dude platform to go to support those needs in the market. And so that leads us into something else we're going to talk to you about today. But before we get there, we realized that on top of all the software pieces, the energy, the events, the capital planning, and the maintenance, when we tried to empathize more with where each and every one of our customers was, and we realized there's so much overhead in your day around communication. In order to make these things go, to make your districts perform at the top of their game, you spend a lot of time with your teams and with your peers inside your walls, across departments, and with those outside your walls in those respective departments and businesses that you have to interact with. And so we want to make sure on top of the core pieces that the Dude was offering, we also had a healthy layer of communication layered in to help bring it all together, because this is where a lot of you were spending most of your time. And that leads us into something else we wanted to talk about today, which is something we call Dude Solutions 360. And it's a new product that we have in market that allows you to pull together all the pieces of the Dude and also communication aspects, as well as integration aspects and analytic aspects across your district. And we can do this for several different shapes and sizes of districts, and even all the way up to the state level. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But as you dive into the solution, we wanted to talk just a little about what it is. And so this is the statement that we have on the product. And in summary, it's a way for you to pull together communications for individuals you work with inside and outside of your facilities. It's a way to handle data capture as well. And then behind the scenes, a lot of what the Dude is doing is helping bring all that data together in the right spots so that you can drive decision making, or rather pull the data together so that it can inform decision making. That's ultimately where we wanted to get to, is we listened to a lot of groups who would say, we have the data, but we're not really sure what to do with it. And that what do we do with it had a number of layers to it. It was, how do we bring data from multiple silos together? Once we have it, what kind of insights can we glean from it? And then what recommendations do you start to have for us? And that's ultimately why we started to unpack the 360 offering. And as I just touched on, and I'll explain here, there are three main components: are the Connect module. And in Connect, that's really the communication, the data capture aspect, and the way for you to bridge the gaps between your teams or across teams that you have to work with, such as HR or food service or transportation, and then even outside of your walls, if you have to bring in outside contractors or outside vendors to support your needs. Second is, we realize that you've made an investment in the Dude, but you've also made investments in other systems over time. And some of those systems may be financial or fleet or HR related or compliance, certainly student information systems. And so we provide the bridges into those systems via integration. We've actually created an integration layer that allows information to flow from those systems into the Dude, And then if needed, you can certainly take that data from the dude and move it back out to those other systems. And that can support data initiatives for yourself as well as for fellow peers inside your organization. And the last piece is analytics. And that's really the way to roll all this data up and create different views for your organization, for your different teams, or for yourself to help understand really that heads-up display of what may be most important for you. And we've got some examples later in the deck here, but it's a way for us to see dude data. It's also a way for you to see dude data next door to other different data assets that may be important to you based on what you're driving forward at your organization this month or over the year. This view here is actually a Dude 360 in the wild. So we are currently working with the state of West Virginia to support moving information across all districts related to capital planning and driving forward facility condition assessments across the state over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years. And we act as that communication backbone to support the initiative. And as you can imagine, all the different individuals who are involved in making that a success. So this is something we've developed in close partnership with them specifically and allowed the 360 offering to be implemented around a handful of initial workflows that were key to the state moving forward on large capital planning for the next decade. And ultimately, it's also getting used in a number of byproduct use cases that help drive communications down from the state level to the individual district level and ultimately to the public view. The next layer in here is actually a map view of a specific district. And this is an overlay of what Damien touched on relative to due data for capital, events, energy, and maintenance planning. And so these are the high-level roll-ups that we can show at a top level. So it's certainly a nice summary data, but the really important thing here is the opportunity to dive into the detailed data. And so what we've started to do is roll this data up in aggregate for different districts or for different states across all their districts, so they can start to have these opportunities for seeing what was there, and then of course drill down into it. A lot of the opportunity insight is in the drill down, and again, that's where the dude can walk beside you and help you answer those questions. We realize some groups have data teams available to themselves, and so we can partner with those data teams to support the data goals and the analysis goals. And if that's not available, you can certainly reach out to our team, and we can help you consult and weed through the data as needed. And the last piece here is actually just a single level site. So if you're familiar with our Dude Intelligence product, this is a snapshot of where Dude Intelligence has been going over the last several months. And this is really a key backbone for the analytics equation when we talk about the 360 offering. Hopefully you are familiar with some of what we can do here. It's a great place to go and check out what may be going on at your organization and seeing some top level views, of course, key KPIs and metrics. It's also an opportunity for us to dive into peer comparisons and peer benchmarking, again, at your immediate site, as well as rolling it up to districts across your state and others across the nation. The last major layer is the integrations layer that I touched on. So this is a highlight of being able to move data across Dude products so that we create those bridges where it makes sense. And importantly, to move data from outside of our product platform from the other major systems that you've made an investment in. And that's why we list out financial, HR systems, fleet, as well as like project planning. Another key one in education are certainly the student information systems. And we want to create those one-way paths or those bi-directional paths to allow information to flow so that you don't have to manually move this information around or send it via Excel spreadsheets back and forth between your peers. And the last piece is actually something that really excites me and really makes this data equation more interesting is we started to look at how the data that is produced by our clients can be correlated with other outside data sets. And some of that includes national school data, as well as in the case of capital planning, RS means data, and then certainly when it comes to our general population census data. And there's opportunities here when you start to correlate it, you can find patterns in the data that can certainly help make a lot of the qualitative things that you may be asking for backed by more quantitative data from your own teams, as well as from national data sets that are made available to all of us. And that's ultimately one of the big cases that we wanted to strive for in our 360 offering. We heard a number of times from our clients and prospective clients that we need data to help us tell stories. And we realized that while we can certainly support on the narrative side, ultimately your story is unique and it's something that we want to help you deliver on. But in order to get the decisions made or to drive the approval for capital dollars or for need for your teams, you need that quantitative data to back it up. And that's where we feel like we can step in a big way on the dude side to support those initiatives. So these all get wrapped up in these 6 major points at the end, and I'll give you a chance to just read through them. These are the things that came out of the process over time, is that we wanted to provide a way for everyone to get to everything in one place. And while there's certainly the benefit of going to a single dude product, there are certain individuals in your organization, potentially yourself, that you need to be able to see it all in one place. And so that was very important. Second was a one-stop shop for communication inside and outside of your walls for others that you interact with. The other is the informed decisions. So data is important, and we touched on this. It's also very important to get to the insight aspects so that you can actually tease out why that decision is a good decision. Knowing where you stand just within your own organization or against your peers or even peers that are not in your same state, that's just a good way to have grounding and understand how what you may be doing is actually making an impact or compared to best practices elsewhere. Continuous improvement. Everything changes little by little each day when we show up and make sure we do the best we can, and over time that turns into something bigger and bigger. And ultimately that's what we want to do in our software. We want it to be a tool in your toolbox so that you can drive that continuous improvement. The connection comes through the communication, and this also includes the community. We realize it's very important to have a voice and an outlet for the community to maybe step into your world, or for you to be able to step out of your world and back into the community. And that's certainly an opportunity with the 360 offering. And lastly, it's automation in your processes. There's a lot of manual processes in the world of the dude, and we started to take a close look at where we can start to automate. And the integration layer was a first key driver for how to do that, as well as some of the form capture tools we're starting to make available. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about data and analytics and where we're starting to really push the envelope around where the industry is going and the market is going. And what Damien touched on earlier in our data assets across the board, because of the partnerships that we've had with clients like yourselves and others, we have a significant set of byproducts in the data. And the dude has been very intentional over the last 12 plus months, not only in looking at that data asset, but also positioning itself to actually look at where the market is going and say, what kind of talent do we need to have inside of this organization to adjust to the changes in the market? And so we've made significant investment in people as well as products and the data so that we can improve the lives of our customers going forward. And some of what we're looking at and thinking about, these are just examples of LinkedIn and Amazon as well as Google Maps, where we can start to do data and analytic products in the context of our products. So some of what we're doing within our data research team is benchmarking users in context of their workflows. So on the left side, for example, you may see you're in the top 10% of technicians when you are doing time against the work order system relative to the work order type that you're working on. The other is we're starting to look at bundling asset data or system data against work types. So if you're working on one item, we can predictively tell you these are other items that should probably be worked on based on our work order history of 250 million plus work orders. and we start to see some of those patterns in the data. Another piece is thinking about how we can make your team's days more efficient. And that would be looking at fastest maintenance time or optimizing the work that you can do based on the different locations your team may have to travel between. And these are just some of the touch points that we're doing within the context of the Dude data alone. More broadly, though, we're starting to look at how we can correlate that with other data sets. So looking at how Damien touched on the opportunity for energy data may be driving problems around maintenance or event data. We try to find patterns in the data that could actually make recommendations back to you and your team to decide these are things that you should focus your capital dollars on. Ultimately, we're all in this environment of having to figure out how to do more with less. And so a lot of what we're trying to figure out is how we can optimize what you should be focusing on with the more with less situation that we're all in. If we could certainly wave a wand to have the more, we would, but the reality is we have to get really good at deciding where to put our time, attention, and resources, and we think we can be a great support tool for the teams that we serve in that context.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. So just a few closing thoughts. I know we covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, but really wanted this to be an introduction into the platform that we're building and improving on to really enable predictive operations going forward. And there are a number of elements to this. And again, it's not just having those 4 solutions that our clients have been talking to us about and that address challenges that our clients have had, but it's really starting to connect those solutions at the data level and glean some interesting insights and answers to questions that we know you need to answer. So it's pretty exciting, and there are a number of different ways to get going on this platform and on this journey that we're going to be on for the next 15 to 20 years. A lot of our clients begin with operations and asset management, so they simply want to get a handle on their work requests. They want to have a system of record where they can keep track of work orders. They can start to do asset management and tie work orders to assets. They can start to set up preventive maintenance schedules, and that can help lay the right foundation for capital planning and for some other solutions and other efficiency gains. We talked about event management as a way to just understand facility usage and what the cost is, and how to start to how to maybe get a handle on that cost and start to recover it. Energy, a lot of our clients begin with energy simply because they don't have a lot of funds, and it can be a tremendous opportunity for cost savings, opens up an opportunity to create a data-driven culture within your school district, but also a culture of conservation. So a lot of times energy can be a good starting point, and that can free up, the savings can free up funds for other initiatives and other investments. And then all of this insight and data, again, needs to somehow inform the capital plan. So that's really coming full circle and being able to accurately forecast your capital expenditures based on asset and equipment conditions, again, to prevent unexpected and unfunded capital requests. And then Dude Solutions 360 is just a great example of a practical example of how we're tying all this together in a meaningful way to give you a map-based view of your school district operations and to help you communicate more effectively both inside and outside of your organization. So it's a new day for us at the Dude and for Dude Nation. We're thrilled about this next phase of the journey. We're thrilled to have our clients come with us on that journey, and we have realigned to support this enterprise mission and this direction to again help set you up to succeed over the next 15 to 20 years. So with that, Chris, unless you have something you want to add, we can open it up for questions.
No, I think we're covered. thank you all for your time today. We certainly appreciate it, and we look forward to sharing a little bit more about what we're working on and helping to understand where it may fit in your world today.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate both of your insight today. That does conclude the primary portion of our presentation. Really quick, before I jump into our first questions, we did have a few. I wanted to remind everybody who's on the phone, if you have another question, go ahead and submit that via the Q&A feature. I'm also going to launch a quick poll. So if there's anything that you heard or spiked interest or you want to learn more about today, after today's webinar, please just take this quick poll. Let us know whether it's work and asset management and capital forecasting, event management, energy management, or how it all kind of rolls up together with 360. Just let us know in that quick poll, and then we can follow up with you appropriately. Gonna leave that up for a second, so you guys can take a minute to let those responses roll in. But we'll go ahead and launch our first question. So one great question that came in earlier in the presentation is, where do you really recommend that a new client get started with the platform? What's that journey look like for them?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and we kind of touched on some of this earlier, but one of the things that clients love about this framework is that there's a lot of flexibility to kind of choose your own path, choose your own adventure, if you will, and your own starting point. I think the two most common starting points we're seeing is, again, work and asset management. That really is the foundation for maintenance and operations. So just getting a handle on work requests, becoming more asset-centric, and starting to do preventive maintenance. That alone can be tremendous. And then you're starting to build a data foundation to then be able to do some interesting things down the road, like capital planning, but also more predictive maintenance. And then the other is energy, right? A lot of our clients want to start there because they know they have waste. They know they have assets that are, almost like energy vampires that are need to be replaced, need to be looked at, that can be hazardous, right? So it's kind of back to safe and productive learning environments, right? You've got to have an infrastructure that's sound and safe and efficient. So we've seen clients do that. But whether you're an existing client or a new client, we can be prescriptive for clients that want us to be prescriptive, but we'd rather have clients tell us what they want to tackle first, and we'll support them in that. Chris, anything else you know?
I think that sums it up very well.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for that insight, Damien. Next question that came in, how do you help ensure that clients get off the ground running successfully with these solutions? What are we doing from an implementation standpoint to make sure that in an initiative this big, they're being set up for success?
Yeah, so another great question. So client success is a huge tenet for us here at the Dude. You saw on one of the earlier slides, we have a lot of clients, but what's really exciting is that they're happy clients. Our client satisfaction scores are terrific. Our NPS scores are great, and we're known for our legendary client support. So it's interesting when we in marketing work on client case studies, we often hear about support and the fact that you can call in and get some, have somebody to talk to. There's somebody at the other end of the phone, which our clients appreciate. But we have a whole client success function or organization inside the Dude. We have dedicated implementation teams. We have client success managers. We have various services. We have like around data migration and other things. We have virtual trainings in classrooms. So we have a whole program to make sure that we're shepherding clients along as they start to implement some of these solutions, right? Because this isn't easy, but we are committed to client success. So our services organization is a big part of this entire equation and this vision of kind of where we're headed.
That's great. Looks like we've got a third and final question that's come in. Can you maybe share an example of how we've used the extensive data that you referenced earlier in the presentation to help a client be more effective and efficient in their operations?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind, and Chris might be able to add more color or maybe even share other examples, but we had one state client that that had a lot of work order data that was not tied to assets. So part of the exercise was to reclassify their work orders and compare them against similar work orders in our warehouse, and then be able to correlate them to certain asset categories, to be able to look at work orders and say with 95% or more certainty that this work order is probably tied to a roof, or this one's probably tied to an HVAC system. And then we were also able to calculate a maintenance intensity score with some machine learning capabilities, so we could tell them, basically classify their roofs as either red, needing immediate attention, yellow, or green. And what that helps them do is prioritize, roof maintenance so that they can, avoid, costly, leaks or nobody wants to replace a commercial roof, right? That can be a nightmare. So it's about getting ahead of some of that spend and some of that risk.
I think what I would add there is that we gave the customer a different set of tools to evaluate their data across their teams, and it helped them think a little bit differently about their capital spend in the near term versus the mid and long term. So we were able to help them prioritize where they should be planning to either basically fix or replace certain assets or certain systems that were a part of their districts at large. That was a big part of it. The second is where we started to help individuals really classify their data and associate it to other areas that they may be interested in, like energy efficiency or capital spend outside of assets. So it helps them look at, do they have basically the right teams staffed in different areas of their organization, or do they have enough staff inside the organization versus using outside vendors based on how much maintenance is in play over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. So those are just some of the more large scale items that were project based. A lot of those that were key drivers for how we started to look at what we can do with the data and start to weave it into the products that we have at the Dude and on the platform. And ultimately, that's a big piece of what started to bring the 360 product to fruition.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you, Damien. Really appreciate the insight, not only in the Q&A, but in the presentation today. And again, thank you to everybody who's joined us. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions that's come in, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up and give everybody a little bit of time back in their day. But again, really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. Hope you guys, this has generated some excitement. Hope you are now as excited as we are about this. And if you have any questions, here's our contact information below. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help with any questions that anybody's got. But again, enjoyed it, and we will look forward to you guys joining us next time. Thanks, everyone.